welcome
Pressing the
everyone
button.
to the Brightrock Q&A. Most of you will know me. I am Lee, also known as Noontide across Steam, pretty much everywhere that you've probably interacted with us in the past. And I am one of the designers on Galacticare. I'm also the community manager for Brightrock Games, which is why most of you will know me. So joining me, obviously, are these four other devs who you've had plenty of time to get to know already. And some of them you will recognize, others you may not, and we may as well do some introductions from that. So why don't we start with Patrick? Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, hello. I'm Patrick. I do 3D artwork, mainly characters and organic stuff like plants and art direction.
Okay. Tina, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey there, I'm Tina. I'm the main UI artist. I collaborate a lot with Josh, and sometimes I dabble in marketing as well.
Nano, I'm sure needs no introductions, but you may as well do it for the benefit of people who don't know you.
Yes. Well, yeah, so I'm Nano. I'm one of the main programmer, and I produce bugs in the game, so yeah.
Don't we all? And finally, last but not least, and he's definitely last purely because this is the only time I get to make him that. Josh.
Ow. I'm Josh. I am the other designer on the game and the creative director on the game. So I design all the bugs that Nano then implements.
It's a well-honed process of design, concepting those bugs, drawing them down, and getting them into the game right up to the very end, so that they can reach you, our loyal customers. So it's been a little while since we've been face to face like this with you. We know that the silence has been deafening in a lot of cases, but now that Galacticare is finally out in the open, it's going to be an opportunity for us to speak more freely with you guys again. This stream is going to be one such chance for us to do that. It's certainly not going to be the last. We're going to be talking much more often. We're going to probably do more of these. Almost certainly we're going to reappear on Twitch, and you're going to start getting blogs and updates from us as the game's development progresses. And hopefully we can share with you this new world that we're creating. And as always, you are very welcome to ping us on Discord, Twitter, anywhere that we are. We're always happy to talk. That's something that's really important to us.
Yeah, for those of you that have been with us since War for the Overworld, you know that we like to talk, maybe sometimes too much. So it's been a very long silence for us as well. Open communication is very big, very important to us, and as with Cult as well, our publisher, we were going to have two of them with us today, but they are both quite badly sick. So we had a bit of a change of plan. But you will be able to see and talk to them hopefully in future streams.
They're the guinea pigs for some of our new conditions going into the game. So yeah, today we've assembled quite a variety of questions that you guys have asked in the chat, as well as across many other channels. We're going to answer questions on Galactica. We will try and answer any questions on the partnership between Brightrock Games and Cult, but obviously, as the Cult people are otherwise indisposed, that's not necessarily going to be our focus. And of course, we're going to answer questions about the venerable War for the Overworld. There have been quite a few questions submitted, a lot more than we probably anticipated. So we have selected and drilled down to a selection of them. But don't worry if you don't get an answer to your question. First of all, there's plenty of time ahead to be asking questions. We're going to be doing more of these. And second of all, if we make good time, then we will be opening up to the chat, and we will try and pick some questions out of the live chat or some that we've already got down here. Speaking of which, this will be going for roughly an hour. The entire stream is recorded. That includes the chat. And so that we can share it with the wider community, so that we can put it up on YouTube and make sure that people don't miss out on this opportunity to see us engaging and to engage with us from that. And yeah, as I mentioned, we will take questions towards the end after we have answered the questions we already have here. So without further delay, let's begin. So first of all, a little bit of subjectivity before we get into more formal questions and answers. what is everyone's favorite feature in Galacticare so far? And for this one, we will start with Tina.
Thank you. I think I'm gonna go with the aesthetic of the game, how the game looks. It's very, first of all, it's very colorful. Has a lot of stuff that I think you probably saw in the trailer already. From the weird conditions to the room treatment, they are quite crazy. We have a lot of variety as well, so I'm really excited to see even more comments from you guys when it comes to this.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see people's reactions to it. Like, absolutely fascinating and fantastic to see. Finally putting it out there and have people say, this looks great. Josh, what's your favorite feature in Galactica so far?
Yeah, I think for me it's probably the consultants feature, which is it's a really important feature of the game. It's probably the single feature that encapsulates all of the pillars of the game. It's the thing which allows you to take some of your staff from level to level across the game, and they progress and advance with you, and they have their own little stories. There's a huge amount that we want to say about this feature, and it's probably going to be the subject of some videos and development blogs later on. So you'll definitely get to learn more about that in the future.
Very nice. Consultants coming to a blog post near you soon. Nano, how do you feel? What's your favorite feature?
I'd go even one step above Josh and say the Galactipedia. So that's where we store effectively the progress from level to level. And I kind of like to see effectively like progress throughout the games and see nuggets of information you might get. I can't say too much more about it, but there's plenty of information in there which grows as you play, and it's quite exciting. It's quite nice.
I'm sure we'll be talking a bit more about the metagame progress as development continues as well, so look forward to that. Patrick, how about you?
Well, I'll go one step below Nano then in that case, where inside the Galactipedia, the conditions really. I think what's been so nice about developing this this game is that we had the opportunity to put a hospital in space. So the amount of kind of flexibility and creativity for creating all kinds of weird and mad conditions has just been so liberating and fun and strange, and I think it's been really interesting to toe the line between just fun, silly ideas and ones that are a little bit more creepy and interesting and a bit edgy, I suppose. So I think that's been really good. And I think just working with everyone on that has been just really satisfying. So it's been and it's great to see them in the trailer and how they're put across.
What about you, Lee?
Oh, yeah. Well, for myself, my favorite thing about this game has to be death. The reason for that is long and storied, and I have a very particular fascination with it in this game, particularly. I grew up playing Team Hospital, and I grew up playing these types of games, and I really enjoyed it. But one thing that always irked me was the fact that you'd get a guy who goes in for terribly invasive surgery, gets cut up by a terrible doctor, politely gets up, walks out the door, and then dies in the corridor. So one of the things that we tried to do here is we've made a whole bunch of death animations. So like almost any treatment room, I think probably any treatment room, can kill the patient in the room. And you get to watch them disintegrate, you get to watch them burn to a crisp. Like there's absolutely so many cool animations going on. Like Will, our VFX artist, has knocked it out of the park, and like the art team has been doing a great job with this. So I'm really looking forward to you guys seeing that. And a lot of the conditions also have a unique death state in the corridor as well. Like it's not just a generic canned death. Like they're gonna fall apart in a way that makes sense for the condition they're suffering from, if the condition can kill them.
I don't know many people who've overstated death so much. I mean, it's slightly terrifying, Lee. I'm not gonna lie.
So excited.
I mean, we put a lot of effort into death.
Yeah.
You can see some of it in the trailer. There are 2 unique deaths in the trailer, which I'm sure you can spot.
Yeah, it's that's going to be really fun. But now you've heard all of our favorite features so far, and I'm sure there's more amongst the team, and hopefully you guys will have some really features that you'll enjoy when it finally gets into your hands later this year. But let's move on to some real questions, the meat and butter of which you guys asked. So first of all, and this is really for Josh, the creative director of the game, why a hospital management game set in space?
Why indeed? So, as many of you know, our previous game, War for the Overworld, was very heavily inspired by Dungeon Keeper. So as we were winding up development on that, we were starting to think about what we'd do next. Theme Hospital was something that a lot of the team really enjoyed, but we didn't want to make something so close to our inspiration in the same way that we did with War for the Overworld. So we thought about what kind of twist could we bring to it. And the natural evolution was aliens, right? Because that gives us such an amazing canvas with which to do all sorts of weird and wonderful things, not only with the variety of patients, but also the variety of treatments and variety of conditions and the backdrops and places you can go. Yes, space. Thank you, Andrew. Exactly like that. So yeah, it's kind of a mash of these two ideas into this one lovely, perfect package.
Brilliant. I'm not saying like Andrew's a really appropriate image in chat. Tim Curry would probably love our game. I hope he would. I would love for Tim Curry to love our game. So going on beyond that, then there's been a few questions on the topics. Like, what about in this hospital that you're building, this management game about running a hospital? What about the non-medical stuff, the employee needs and the staff needs and the patient needs? Do you have to take care of these people, make sure that they're rested, entertained? Are there conflicting needs, and do certain species need special facilities or solutions?
Yeah, so obviously, yes, it's a game about hospitals and you treat your patients, but also we need to keep everyone happy, not only your patients, but also your staff. So, there's the basic needs that, most of the characters will have. They'll need to, eat, they'll need to go to the toilet and things like that. Although not every species eats, because we do have aliens and, aliens are weird and do different things. But along with the basic stuff, there's a very wide range of things which will impact their mood through thoughts. Like if I'm a patient and I'm waiting for a treatment, I'm going to want to sit down, and if I don't get to sit down, that's going to make me a little bit sad. Or if I see one of the many different types of dead bodies on the ground, that's also probably going to make me sad. If I'm a staff member, I'm also going to want to visit the staff lounge. I'm also going to care about how well decorated the room that I'm working in is. Like if you've made me a treatment room to work in and it's very small and cramped and there's no lovely decorations in it, then that's kind of depressing for me. But if you make it a bit spacious and you fill it with lots of decorative objects and you put it near a staff lounge and other amenities, then I'm going to be a very happy doctor and I'm going to do a very good job. And also, on the sort of specific needs for specific species, each of our species does actually have their own unique desires. So each of your different species in the hospital will be happier or sadder depending on how well you have catered for them. I think we may have lost Nano to the internet, unfortunately. So yeah, you'll need to, as you progress through the campaign and you meet all sorts of new aliens, you'll start to need to adapt your hospitals to be able to cater to all of them and make them all happy, and then hopefully make everyone happy if you're making a very good hospital.
Brilliant, excellent answer. Gotta say, I feel like the thoughts are something that makes it feel a bit more personal when you interact with a character. You just click on somebody, you see their thoughts, rather than necessarily a direct relationship with just bars and numbers. Seeing something, oh, this is what I think. I think that's always been a really interesting, fascinating thing with some of these games, and I'm really glad that we're getting to do that. Obviously Josh talked a little bit about the different species, their different needs and their desires. So on that topic, Pat, what would you say some of the inspirations for the ones in Galacticare were and are?
Well, we've had we had so many different like inspirations from all over the place, like films and graphic novels, TV shows, and I think for me it was really interesting to see where our art style was going to sort of fall a little bit, and it was kind of a little bit of a mixture of sort of thinking about the more kind of realistic side of, say, even the sort of Jim Henson puppetry of, say, Dark Crystal, Star Wars, and that kind of thing, like realistic example like Men in Black, and then the kind of cartoonish ones like Futurama and Rick and Morty. And I think we created a really nice sort of strong personal art style, which kind of amalgamates those kind of different things. But we had all kinds of different things, and I think just to reference some of the ones on the key art, for example, Like there's the Kuba Bali, which is the green sort of dinosaur looking one on the key art on the sort of top left, being horrendously sick, and that was like originated from the antagonist on one of my favorite films, Galaxy Quest, and it was originally this horrible kind of overlooking sort of like disturbing soldier kind of esque alien, and then we sort of calmed it down in with the putting on like kind of more gorilla kind of like aspects and attributes, made it a lot more friendly. And the visage, this sort of tentacle, purple, weird creature we had with it in the cast, that was originally. I was just trying to remember this was from a film in like the '90s called Small Soldiers, and it's one of the good guys called the Gorgonites, and it was the Ocular. I think it's Ocular or something. Do you remember that, Lee? Did you see that, Lee?
I remember that. That is a great film.
Do you remember that? Yeah. Yeah, and it was just that character, and which we took, and we just kept developing and developing. It was just like an eye on a stalk, and that was like how that came about. And then even like the Dino, which is the plant-like humanoid character, sort of like with lots of leafy kind of parts and hair and stuff. And that was like a mixture of like Guardians of the Galaxy, Avatar, and even Ripley from Alien. So it's like a whole kind of bunch of cluster of different things coming together, and yeah.
I just put a GIF in for us to illustrate your point.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I remember with the Dino originally, they're sort of like it's interesting to see the iterations that these things have gone through. I wonder whether we'll share some of those future development diaries. Might be an interesting thing to do. I guess we're on the continuing topic of the species then, Pat. Within a singular species, are there going to be visual differences between them for patients and doctors? Like, obviously, doctors and patients are going to look different, but like, even just within a patient to a patient of the same species, are you going to be able to tell the difference between them? Are you going to be able to tell them apart visually?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question because like I think we were really we wanted to establish kind of core archetypes of the characters that you see in different sci-fi examples, and I think we wanted to create our own versions of those things, but sort of somewhat familiar at the same time. So creating a strong kind of visual identity for each of these creatures was a really important, and make sure they were significantly different from each other, and then also have a population within that kind of species with lots of different individuals was kind of it's trying to mix between the two. So ideally, you will look at the game and you'll see like a whole bunch of Visage or Dino, Cuba Ballet, and you'll see there'll be individuals, and whilst they're having a whole group kind of collective identity as well. So it's a mix between getting a clear sense of all these different aliens that are in your hospital and just a more maybe immersive or authentic feeling of individuals as part of that species.
Brilliant. Just saw a question in the chat that I really want to answer, but I'll never be allowed to talk about. Oh, how I long for that. Okay, so continuing on our species trend though, specific illnesses towards a single species. Are we going to see treatments and conditions that are specific to a species? Josh, why don't you take this? You're muted, Josh.
Hi. Yes, we are going to have conditions that are unique to each of the species. So every species has at least one. Some of these also have their own unique treatments as well. We thought this was going to be like something really important to do because like we wanted our individual species to be more than just like skins on the same character. So there are a lot of systems in the game where the species will interact with them in their own way, like as I mentioned with the needs. Each species has their own little needs, and we wanted conditions to be able to touch on this as well, because they all have very, very different anatomies, right? We wanted to make sure that we were able to make use of those different anatomies with some of these conditions. Pat, I think there was an example you wanted to talk about with this one, isn't there?
Well, I mean, we had a little bit of discussion earlier about this sort of stuff, and I think like glove bite is one that I particularly like about, and just I guess like it's a sort of like a parasite which just sort of bites onto the anatomy depending on what creature you are, and just sort of like I don't know what it does, Josh, but it's disturbing, and I think depending on what kind of creature you are, it kind of bites you in different places. So yeah, I guess that's yeah.
One that I'm quite fond of is the visage, as Pat mentioned, the sort of like the ocular, the big eye sort of look, really gives us this opportunity to create conditions specifically for that, for something that will affect a big eye. One which we've called calcified. It causes the whole eye to crust up. And the treatment of that condition is really interesting and fun. So yeah, the fun individual species conditions.
Yeah, and it's that kind of thing that like we can do on a specific species, but it wouldn't really work on any of the other species. So it really lets us hone in on what would be cool for the individuals.
Yeah,
I think that name is very final, Dan. Thank you very much. So, moving on just from the focus on species and more in a general direction, management sims as a whole, this is a hugely varied genre. With loads of different games moving it in different directions across the board. So, Josh, why don't you tell us what we're doing in Galacticare to hone, update, or expand upon the genre?
Yeah, so if I were to kind of bring this into one theme, it would probably be that we want it to be more than just a management game. We want it to be that you, the player, are going on an adventure through this world, through this universe. And the building of the hospitals is the way that you do that. Traditionally in management games, you have a series of levels, and you go from level to level, and they're all very disconnected. There's very little connective tissue taking you from level to level. But a lot of the systems in the game are all focused around kind of building up that connective tissue and letting you, the player, have sort of a place in this universe as you travel through, from the narrative to a lot of the game systems like the consultants, for example, and the Galactipedia that Nano mentioned. You go on an adventure, you explore, you meet people, and you kind of grow your hospital empire as you do so.
Yeah, there's hopefully going to be a lot of cool things that you're going to see on that journey. Really excited to get that into people's hands. So this one's for Tina. So Wolf of the Overworld, and this was mentioned by at least one person. Wolf of the Overworld featured a sort of like more robust and stylized UI than your typical Unity project, or at least what people seem to associate with a typical Unity project. Are we looking to repeat this in Galacticare, and how important is the UI to us?
Well, this is a very interesting question with a lot of layers. There's, if I could talk about UI, I could talk about it for hours, but I can't. But the difference, I guess, with War for the Overworld, it has a much darker aesthetic, as Pat would like to say. You can't see anything in it. It has a lot of texture. It's much more stylized. It has much more stuff going on. Where with Galacticare, it's a little bit more opposite. It's quite simple, it's clean, it's friendly as well, has much more brighter colors. And there's also, while creating it, I guess it was a challenge, kind of combining sci-fi with hospital. They're quite cold settings, right? So that was to make it actually, lively and fun like the game is. It was quite a challenge, but I think we did a really good job. There's also another thing that is quite important to us, which is accessibility. So while creating, say, for example, for colorblindness, we needed to do a lot of tests with colors and that. So we basically, as you start the game, would like to aim for something that you don't have to tweak a lot of settings for everyone to be able to enjoy the games. That is basically what we want to come across. So yeah, I think it's very different for the Overworld. I'm curious to see, because we don't see it in the trailer, right? So I'm curious to see when we finally manage to get a little bit out there what people are gonna think about this one.
And Tina, this is just a question from me. What's it like to have Josh like leaning over your back and going just a little bit to the left, just turn the red up just a little bit, a few more points? What's that like?
Well, since we collaborate a lot on UI, he did the design before I came. But basically the UX and how things make sense. So it was it was a lot of following, but at the same time, he I don't want to say allowed me because that sounds weird, but he allowed me to have a lot of creative input. So even though things were there, I could easily just change them if I would give a good reason.
So not terrible.
Backseat
then.
UI designer.
I did see
Sorry.
that come up in the chat. Backseat UI designer. Really good. All right. Okay. To save Josh from the roasting, Nano, let's throw this one to you. You mentioned the metagame before. Are we going to have research elements in this game? How's that going to work? Does research reset in every new level, or is there some sort of meta layer?
Yeah, exactly. I do love Galactipedia, so that's like the meta level. And yes, so research gonna be in there, so it's something that you can progress throughout the levels. And it's quite interesting because then you get to know a bit more the condition as you research them. There's tons of features around it, but I can't say a lot more about like how it interlink with other like designs. But on itself, yes, there is research. It will carry on level per level. And as said, then you get to know more about the conditions. So I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, but, like as you level up the conditions, you sort of like gain more and more insight through little diary entries, or that's the plan. So and some of those are very interesting to read.
Yeah,
I wrote one. It was
yes.
about arms, sentient arms. It was nuts. Let's see what's next. Josh, different game modes. How many different game modes are there? Are there going to be different ones? What's going to be in the game? How are we going to be able to play the game?
Sure. So this sort of rolls into the point I was making about everything having sort of connective tissue. Like we didn't want to kind of separate bits of the game or modes out into like their own really distinct areas. There are still kind of two modes. There is the campaign mode where you play through each of the campaign levels and you go through a story, and then there is a sandbox mode. But it's all kind of in the whole campaign. The sandbox maps will appear alongside the campaign maps on the map, and all of the campaign maps you'll also be able to play in sandbox mode as well. But we don't have sandbox as its own thing, sort of hived away from the rest of the game, because sandbox contributes to all of the progression, and it also benefits from all of the progression as well from all of the other levels that you've been playing.
Cool. So few different things there. Now, as a sort of like a general player of management sims myself, I quite resonated with this next question, which was asked. That there's a big appeal for many people playing management sims that feel free in playing suboptimally in favor of this mild, slight sadism. So is there like a room in the game to be mean to your staff or patients, or are there ways that we can interact with them in a way that's just a little bit mean? Pat, why don't you take this?
Well, yeah, I guess it's up to you as the player to choose how you play. I mean, that's not the intention of the game. It is a hospital after all. But I guess like it seems like a bit of a trend in our company to in the project we've been making to have a little bit of that tone of darkness in even the War for the Overworld. Obviously, the way you were treating your creatures and you're running that thing, it had sort of a darker sort of play impish edge, if you like. And I think we've continued that in Galacticare a little bit, but as Tina was saying, very different kind of stylistically, but there's still those tones and that kind of humor a little bit, and you're looking after creatures, and I think the sort of that edge exists more in the treatment rooms and how you're actually genuinely helping to cure and make make patients better, but in a perhaps just less kind of familiar ways a little bit. So for example, we've got a parasitology room where a giant sort of octopus that kind of climbs out and stabs patients, which we call the doctopus. And yeah, it's not the most cuddly procedure. And even like projectile medicine, which is a giant gun, which obviously if you're frozen, well, you're going to need a flamethrower. So that's the ideal solution to that problem, isn't it? So yeah, I guess certainly tonally and in different areas, there's a little bit of that kind of, I love that, mild sadism. That's what a beautiful phrase. Yeah. Yeah.
Beyond that, there's like obviously the sort of like opportunity to do the standard stuff as well, which is like you could just build a hospital without vending machines and watch people suffer that way, or without toilets if you so wished. I think that's definitely going to cause some problems.
Yeah, there's also one of the consultants in the game, which will be appreciated by players who, you know, like some sadism in their games. Let's put it that way.
Really
Wow.
looking forward to talking about
What kind of fan base were you creating here?
that, Doctor.
Yeah.
We made
Where are we
War
going?
for the Overworld, Matt.
Also, I'm a
Okay.
little bit concerned that chat is currently psych-evaling me now over my fascination with death and sadism.
I think they're right
and
to,
torture.
honestly. I think they're onto something. Okay, you need a break.
It is a bit.
moving
It is
swiftly on. Saving myself from this analysis. One of the things that's been mentioned on the store page and something that people picked up on, and in the trailer as well, is gaining reputation with these various alien species, and when you treat them. What does that mean in terms of how your hospital actually works? How patients see you? Do you receive bad or positive reviews? Josh, this will be one for you.
Yeah, so I mean, there's sort of two things here. So we have a reputation system where all of the species that you meet, you have a reputation level with, and as you interact with them more, you treat more patients of that species, and complete levels and events and objectives. You will build your relationship with that species, and you'll slowly unlock rewards from their world, from their culture. And also, yes, we have a rating system for the hospitals as well, and you can be rated poorly or well based on like a huge number of factors. This is quite an elaborate and complex system, and there's a lot of different things that you get rated on in order to, eventually hit that 5-star rating for your perfect hospital.
So a lot that you can gain over the course of the campaign.
Yes, indeed. And also, yes, the rating system will also unlock rewards on a hospital by hospital basis. So as you get 3, 4, 5 stars in a hospital, you'll also unlock rewards from that level as well.
Brilliant. So this one will be for Nano, a much more technically minded question. So we've been working in Unity since like a very long time now. War for the Overworld was built in it. This game is made in Unity as well. And I know that there's a lot of concerns around Unity as an engine, a general perception of performance problems that come from Unity. A question that was asked is, what did we learn and improve from War for the Overworld in terms of performance?
Well, we've learned a great deal because effectively, as you just mentioned, we've been now working with it for like something like 10 years plus, yeah, more than 10 years. And releasing our first game, WFTO, we did learn the hard way. We've built some experience now out of that, and yeah, we know a bit better on what to do with Unity and how to work nicely with it. So one of the main things we've been doing is getting really just the use of Unity for the rendering. So making sure that it's just like, yeah, making all the rendering. And we focused on getting the simulation in a tool that we've built in-house. So I won't get into too much technical detail, but like it's called ECS, Entity Component System. It's very interesting. It allows us, for example, to go and do some multi-threading, which is something we did not had any chance to do in WFTO. So all of that will allow us to have like a lot more performance on the simulation, as mentioned, which unlocks more time for like the rendering. So we can already see that the game, even with the trailer, is looking, yeah, let's say better than we could do on WFTO. So yeah, we should get better performance.
So a lot gained from that experience and stuff that we can apply, not just here but in the future as well.
Indeed, yeah. No, we've been working on tooling that's gonna stay with us at Brightrock Game, and yeah, we're gonna continue honing our tools. So yeah.
Brilliant. So leaping off from there and sort of like the talk of War for the Overworld, Josh, sort of like continuing on this track then, what are former War for the Overworld players, or current War for the Overworld players even, going to like about this new game? Are there going to be similarities in gameplay, story, interaction design?
Yeah, so something that we wanted to bring over from War for the Overworld was like a bit of a god game element into it. So unlike traditional management games like Theme Hospital, the player is going to be able to have a little bit more of a direct impact on what's going on. We wanted to let you sort of get a bit of an arsenal of tools and abilities as you progress through the game. There's quite a few systems that interact with this. But I guess if we were to compare it with something in War for the Overworld, but it's maybe a bit like the potion system, where you are able to acquire and build up these sort of tools. Like for example, you can basically craft what is the equivalent of a healing potion, and if you've got some patients that are about to die, you can go and intervene and heal them. And there's a lot of little bits and pieces like that. Some that you can permanently place down in your hospital to improve certain things. Others that are more transient, like that healing potion. But we wanted to like give you little things you can poke at and tweak instead of just the bog standard build rooms, decorate rooms, hire staff. And I suppose also yes, the variety of staff and the variety of aliens and how they all have their own little different mechanics, which is a little bit like all the different minions that you have in War for the Overworld. So it's variety of things to do and interact with, I suppose.
And if you were to compare the games, what would you say is the biggest difference between War for the Overworld and Galacticare?
Well, fundamentally, one of the things that's I guess been a bit of a backbone thematically is that although there is an amount of violence in the game in how you might treat patients and other things, fundamentally Galactica is not a game about combat. It's not a game about beating an enemy. It is a game about fixing problems. It's a game about saving people, curing people, and generally doing good, as opposed to in War for the Overworld where you were the bad guy and you went around murdering everyone, right? So yeah, you're good. You solve problems instead of murder people, basically. Although solving problems can involve accidentally murdering people in this game.
Accident.
Would you say you were curing one patient one patient at a time, the Galaxy one patient at a time?
Good job with the tagline there, Pat.
That was a flub if I ever heard one.
Nice. Nice.
Yes, you save the galaxy one patient at a time, Pat. Yes, good job.
Perfect, beautiful, love it.
Okay, so where were we? Nano, is there going to be multiplayer in Galactica?
The simple answer is no. At its core, it's really like a single player. Even so, we've learned a great deal again. So I'm sure we do a much better job at doing multiplayer game now. But yeah, no, it's built from the ground up to be a single player experience. So yeah, no multiplayer.
The lessons learned, but not the game to apply them to.
No, but yeah, we're still honing our tools, so it is still very much something we could do in the future.
But Josh, I guess Richard Ridings, obviously a really big, really big character throughout our time in the industry. How is he going to appear in the game? Is he going to have a role? Is he going to have a small cameo, a guest role?
Stay tuned on that one.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned, Underlord.
Tim Curry.
It's Richard Ridings will play Tim Curry. It's gonna be great. Tina, we've not come to you for a while. Is there going to be a separate release of the game soundtrack? I really like the soundtrack, by the way. Not been able to share any of it.
It's really good, isn't it? It's so like I don't want to say a lot of, but I'll probably you realize it by watching the trailer. It's just enjoyable. It's just nice while while you do your thing. You always have the hot soundtrack. But yeah, it is. It's gonna eventually be available for download on all the streaming platforms.
Brilliant. And Nano, a question that came up, and I don't fully understand the technical side of any of this. Is there going to be 3D audio in the sound design?
Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's gonna be for all the narration, that's going to be 2D, obviously, but like any in-world sound will be 3D, and we push that slightly by having, for example, specific sound within specific rooms. So if you zoom in and there's some treatments and there's maybe some interesting sound that might come out of that, then yeah, you'll hear more. So yeah, no, there's going to be 3D sounds.
Cool.
Yeah.
And sticking with you, Nano, a question that was asked from one of our Apple customers: is the game going to be available for Mac and also Apple Silicon on launch day?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Unity, so it's just a click of a button, isn't it? So
that's what they say.
That's what they say. No, it's a bit more complex than that. But we've managed to do it on WFTO. While it's still like to be done, I'm very confident that it will be done. If it's not on release, it will be soon after anyway. So yeah, no, I can say for sure we will get the game on Mac.
Brilliant. So if not a launch day, then probably quite soon after. But almost certainly launch by the sound of it.
Should be.
Okay, so coming to the end of our like official questions that we've got written down here. Let's ask another question to each of us. What is your favorite condition in the game, Tina?
It's hard because there's so many, but there's one called spacing, where basically you are part of the galaxy, and I'm gonna leave it at that. You, well, not technically you, but like the patient, are part of the galaxy. And I'm gonna say more than that, but I bet a lot of people like this one.
Yeah, it's a good one. You stole mine, so yeah.
So Josh, what's your favorite condition in the game?
It's one that at the moment is called acid burns. A lot of these names may change. But it's where like parts of the patient's body has been dissolved away and it's like just leaves behind their bones. You can see it a couple of times in the trailer. And one thing that I really like about this is it exposes some of the inside of some of our different species, and because they're all aliens, they have different innards. They all have different brains. Pat spent a lot of time making brains for all the different species, and they all have their own different skeletons on the inside as well. Like the plant character Pat was talking about earlier, their skeleton is actually a root system inside their body. So when you see one of these characters walking around with acid burns, you see big holes in their torso with roots sticking out, and it's just really cool.
This chat are talking about the sadism again.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tina. What were you gonna say?
I was about to mention the same thing. It's very we focus on death, on bones, on burning people, killing people, but it's not only about
genre. Yeah.
It's not only about
I was going to say, yeah, it's sort of like when Josh mentioned the brains thing, it just flashed in the back of my head. This back when we still had the office before COVID started. I remember that it felt like there wasn't a day that you would go into the office for like a year that there weren't brains being worked on at some point. Like just in the background, it just occasionally pop up and you just working away at them. It has been fascinating to see. I think it's one of the most interesting things about the alien thing in general, right, Josh? It's like the fact that we have a bunch of different aliens, which means the amount of work we have to do for any given condition is quite a lot. If we want to expose the skeleton on somebody, well, they all have to have skeletons now. And that's made a lot of variety. I think that's really, really cool. But continue on with the questions. Favorite condition, Nano?
Well, it would have been Space Invasion, but I got like a close second one anyway. There's no real like final name for it, but it's one where the species have like some cybernetics on them, and I really like that. So A, because it looks pretty cool. B, it ties very well with the species. It's actually like a condition for the species, so with the background, I won't say more. But yeah, it's so there's like lore behind it. It looks visually really nice. I really like that. And while developing the game, I actually shamefully did not watch Star Trek in the past, so I did, and I did reminded me of something like the Borg. So really like this condition. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I like the voice as well. The voice would have been up there until
For
Nano
sure.
stole my answer.
Yes.
But speaking of stolen answers, so a peek behind the curtain for everyone. Patrick answered a question earlier on, and he answered with the answer that he was going to give here, which was glove bite. So now Patrick has to pick a new condition to talk about on the spot.
Well, I like it's called like backseat UI designer. What happens is you're trying to do some UI work, right? And this person behind you called like John or James or something like that with glasses, he's just going yeah, and you're like, oh, go away. It's really annoying. No, but I like jellification. That's a really good one. I think it's where you're basically your entire being turns into some kind of like gooey matter. Yeah, it's just that the VFX we achieved for that, and the look is just really nice. Yeah.
A lot of the VFX in this game, like Will, again, I've mentioned him before, like our VFX artist who's not here. It probably would be someone cool to get on stream at some point. Like he's done an excellent job with so many of these conditions. Absolutely brilliant. The cat.
Look at a kitty.
Look at the kitty cat. Wow, distracting. And like that also brings me on to my favorite, which is a condition which is known by many names, and I'm going to call it retrograde. Which is essentially where we take the existing character and we polygonalize them in a way that looks like a retro video game. Think something like the old arcade Battlezone. So it's got that sort of like polygonal aesthetic, the dark fill color versus the really bright edges, and it looks absolutely fantastic. You can see a little bit of that in the trailer as well. I'm sure people will have noticed. So absolutely really fascinating. I really like that. And again, brilliant work from the art team as a whole on the conditions in this game. And there are so many. Like we've picked out 7 or so, maybe 8, throughout the course of this Q&A, and there's just so many more. Easily one of the solid bit of works. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of see the conditions as like, you know, I was saying the game is not about like beating enemies, but like if the conditions are basically the enemies in the game, we treat them as characters, and we put a similar amount of effort into a condition as we would a character when it comes to like what its place in the world is and how it's interacted with. So, yeah, a lot of work's gone into them.
Okay. So, a last question before we take some questions from the chat. Can you do stuff outside of your hospital job?
Yeah, so you can see a little bit of this going on in the trailer, but you know, obviously you're in space, and there's lots of space outside of each of your hospitals, and quite a few of the levels actually have you interacting with the environment around you. Maybe one or two other things I can mention, because they are listed on the store page. If you read that, nobody reads store pages, but if you do read it, you would have noted this. At one point, the patient that you're treating is not a little alien in your hospital, but it's actually an entire planet. So you have to do quite a lot of things outside your hospital to go and treat that planet. And there's all sorts of things like that as you progress through the campaign. It's very cool.
This plays into the theme, as you said before, one like something that's quite different versus what we think the rest of the genre is doing, is like making it into an adventure, right? So the idea of treating a whole planet is like a twist on this concept. I think will be really fun. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our official questions. Now, I know that there have been quite a few questions asked in chat, but if you have asked a question, I would just please ask it again, and we'll try and pick some out. If not, I'm sure we have some that we can pull from. But yes, please do ask your questions now. Like, God, what the questions?
What's your perfect Sunday, Josh?
My perfect Sunday?
Yeah.
Which kind of Sunday?
Yeah. Oh, God,
Which
I take it back. I'll take it back. It's not worth it.
If you just answer every question with a question, then we'll get stuck in a permanent loop of always questions and never answers. So
Okay, so there's
Andrew,
questions here, Lee.
Andrew asked us if we ignored his question about chunders as an Easter egg. Josh.
Well, Andrew, yeah, we thought we
That
had
is
too
your
many
real
questions
name.
at the beginning, and we if that is your real name, we almost did have that one in the list of questions, but we've made good time, so I will answer this question. Are there chunders in the game? So, there's lots of chunder in the game, I guess, is the answer to that, and you can see a lot of it in the trailer. Like, we put a surprisingly large amount of effort into vomit. Let's put it that way. Like, a lot of effort into vomit. We wanted it to be really nice vomit. So yeah, I know you didn't mean vomit. I know, of course, I knew you didn't mean that, but that's the answer you're getting. So deal with it.
So Peter asks, is it possible for hospital personnel to go on strike, Josh?
No, they can't technically go on strike. If you are like really garbage at running a hospital and you don't look after your staff and you don't pay them well or you don't feed them, they will get mad and just quit. Which I suppose is kind of them going on strike.
I feel like this is a question for Pat from Lagan Wagon. Do space vampires own the blood banks? It's very important.
Yes.
There you go. There we have it.
That's what
Dante, I know you're out there. Note that down. That's now official law. So, a question asked, Josh, will space pirates or other forces invade your hospital?
So, early on in development, we did actually talk quite a lot about having, I guess, antagonistic elements in the game and events where there was a sense of danger and possible combat. But as I've spoken quite a bit about, we wanted to like really focus in on the fact that it's not a game about combat, because almost every game is about combat. Almost every game you punch someone or you shoot someone or you blow someone up, and although you do shoot and blow people up in this game, it's in the course of their treatment, right, and not in the course of trying to defeat them. So we kind of just didn't want to do that. We wanted to focus on what was going to make Galacticare as opposed to just putting combat in, because combat's in every game. So no, you don't get invaded by space pirates.
Very sad. This resulted in the cutting of one of my most anticipated features, security guards, and I've never let anyone live this down, and I will take it to my grave.
He hasn't.
For years.
What are you saying, Nano?
I was saying, like, yeah, no, you don't get attacked by space pirates, but you do get invaded by space invasion.
Oh,
yes.
I
suppose actually there is something, right? So as is a common in the genre, there are like not rats, because obviously we're in space, but there are little nasty critters and pests that do, I suppose, invade your hospital and do unpleasant things around, and I suppose there is a form of combat in defeating them, but it's not combat in the traditional sense. You just sort of click on them and splurt them. And that's it.
Piglets.
Space rats.
I like the chat.
Taking pests a little bit further than they were in other games in this genre as well, which I'm sure is something we'll probably talk about at some point. Oh god, let's see. Schlizzard, mate, I have said your name so many times over the years, I have no idea how it's pronounced. So just so you know, that's not me intentionally getting it wrong. But he asks, are there other hospitals or some kind of competition going on, or is it only about treating patients?
I suppose I'll answer that.
Sorry.
So there are some levels in the campaign where there is a sort of an element of competition going on. Obviously, if you've played other hospital management games, there is this sort of competition system that exists. we didn't want to put that in as a system because it feels like that's sort of filling a void because there's no real narrative going on. Whereas in our game, each level has its own bit of narrative going on, so we didn't need a system like that to kind of fill that. But it is something that we build into the narrative occasionally where it makes sense to do so.
Okay. And this is continuing the question 4, I think, about the space pirates invading. This is from Riven. They ask if there will be plagues or other events. Now, obviously, the first thing we have to answer is that the whole game is about treating plagues and various medical issues. But I suspect that what they're getting at is sort of like a plague which spreads within the hospital, a gameplay device, an event which causes some disruption amongst your patients that spreads. Josh.
I guess I'll
Yes.
sure.
Sorry.
Yes.
Take
So
over.
contagious conditions is something that we did consider quite a lot, and that there were points in time where that was something that we were going to do, and also the ability for a patient to come in and potentially have one condition and then gain another condition. But it's not something that we pursued too far. The key reason being is because in our game, every single condition has a visual impact on the patient, which again is not something that you see in other games in the genre. So it became pretty clear that those two things were going to compete. Like if we wanted every condition to have a visual impact, then we weren't going to be able to have you be able to walk into the hospital and gain another condition because those then visuals would then clash with each other. And we felt that having the conditions with their unique visuals was more important because, as I was saying, they're kind of our characters, our enemies in the game. We really wanted them to have a big imposing impact and presence in the game, and this is something that would have compromised on that. So it's not something that we pursued. As far as other events are concerned, the game is full of events. There's events coming out the wazoo. Like that's like a lot of what you do. So yes, events, many events.
Event.
It's interesting what you said there about that, because we did make a bit of a trade-off between where we're going to spend our time and resources and how what we can afford to sort of project. Because, as you said, the characters take all the species take a big kind of corner of that, and we could have gone down the route of saying having more homogenized character alien base where they're much more similar, could have one or two different varieties. And then maybe afford to do more conditions because of that, because of the surface area. Simply like the logistics, the kind of the need to have a surface area requirement on each character, and make sure, as Josh says, the condition had a sort of personality and was as strong as we could push them, meant that we had to pick and choose our battles. I think in that one, and I think we made the right choice because having an interesting, diverse set of characters and creatures and that can be both staff as well as patients, was a really key thing for us.
Absolutely. So Andrew asks if you get visits from health inspectors or something similar. Josh, again, a lot of these questions, I'm sorry for everyone else on the panel, are going to go to Josh because people are going to ask questions about gameplay.
Sure. Yes. So, as a sort of a character that walks around the hospital, this isn't something that we've got. The key reason being is there's a lot of these like kind of pseudo events, pseudo narrative things, a bit like the hospital competition, and also like Hospital Inspector, which there sort of simply isn't room for because each level has its own bespoke narrative and bespoke series of events going on. There's not really room for that sort of lower level, more generic stuff to be happening. With that said, there are systems that kind of ape what the hospital inspector would be doing, judging you on a bunch of things and telling you, hey, you could improve this thing or improve that thing, or your hospital is crap for this reason, right? Like you do get that kind of feedback through other systems in the game.
I'm gonna have to bleep that one, aren't I?
No.
I think that falls in the Peggy 12. I think we're all right.
If you bleep that, I'll be mad.
Oh, okay. All right. Calm down. I think there's actually a level which is going to probably utilize some of that as well as a focus. So yeah, really interesting. Okay. We're running out of time, so I'm trying to pick between these two questions. I'm going to throw this one to Pat. Are there any art designs or designs that were particularly challenging?
God, all of it. I mean, like we were trying to. I mean, one the interesting thing I think we were trying to like reinvent existing rooms and treatment rooms, and I think in a way which we thought was fun, interesting, crazy, alien, and hospitally, and in a way which felt kind of had a tone of sort of be a bit kind of over the top and a little bit edgy and a bit uncomfortable for the patients. And I think trying to create a variety of different rooms that didn't overstep each other, because it's easy, we could have created like a horrible monster in each room which did all the treatment for you, but we wanted each one to have a personality. And I think we did a really good job of that. I think it was a real team effort, about talking about where we're going to push the themes of each room, and I think they have such strong personality. I think what I love is like having that the conditions, the characters, and the rooms all have strong personalities, and I think it really helps sell, a really kind of interesting, interesting hospital life. And so yeah, I think maybe I'd say the rooms in particular, because we had to sort of manage how much we could spend and afford with animations, how much time you could have a patient or a doctor in a treatment room, and making sure it didn't overstep into the bounds of another room's theme.
I'd probably like to add to that as well, like the different sizes of characters has been like
Oh yeah, of course.
insane amount of work and consideration into like every single asset. When you've got like this little tiny monkey character and then this giant dinosaur character and everything in between, and they all need to be able to interact with the same thing. They need to be able to sit on the same chair, lie on the same bed, use the same, set of buttons, go to the same
Door.
toilet. Like go through the same door. Like it's insane how like both constraining and like an interesting challenge it is to work that into everything. Like, and that's not just from an art standpoint as well. Like the pathfinding system in the game also deals with that. Like you can create an arrangement of little props in your corridor where there's like a little gap between them, and your little aliens can walk through that gap, and then the big guys are gonna have to walk all the way around and be really sad. And like
we kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit there, because we did want to deliberately create an interesting set of creatures which were deliberately different in size, silhouette, movement, all this stuff, to create variation. We thought it was a really important thing for a sci-fi game to have, and I think we kind of knew what we're getting into, but not nearly as bad as it was going to be. I think, even like you said, just getting through the door, character through a door, and you go, oh, one's huge and one's small. But anyway, I think it's been a really good payoff. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, like we've just recently didn't. Oh, you go on, Lee.
Oh yeah. We all have something to say about this, I guess. I do remember like some late nights at the office, where Josh had laid down yet another pathfinding mandate for Stefan, who is in the chat. And Stefan was there working, because he's a dedicated man, Stefan is, and he was just going for it, and like he was like, this game was meant to be simple from pathfinding perspective. It just got more and more and more complicated, and I think the pathfinding he's landed on is fantastic. It handles loads of characters, like without like really bringing down the performance. It's way more efficient than War for the Overworlds is, and it has a lot of features in it. Some things that it doesn't have to account for from War for the Overworld, it doesn't have, but like it accounts for more interesting problems as well. Like, he's done a great job on it. I cut you off, Josh, and also we are like over time now, so I don't know, Josh. Do you wanna say your point, and maybe we close it off there?
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the things that we've been working on over the past couple of weeks is a prop for one of the treatment rooms where the patient needs to lie in a bed, which you'd think was simple, but things then need to happen on and around this bed and interact with the patient, and the level of complexity involved in that, when you have the plant character who's taller than everyone else, and the dinosaur character who's wider than everyone else, and this tiny little monkey who's really small, and it has to work with all of those. Like, it's crazy. You can see, Dan is the one who's been having to deal with this. He's been enjoying that.
Yes.
Loves it.
And for the benefits of everyone, Spoofshot asks, is there a year estimate for release of the game? Yes, this year. We're releasing this year. Okay. I think that is everything. I think that we have covered our questions. We've answered as many questions as we can from the chat. I know that I didn't get every single one, but time permitting, these lovely people, it is now 10 o'clock in the UK, and we are all based in the UK. 10 p.m. I should clarify. So I think it's probably time for us to wind down. Thank you so much, everyone, for turning up. Thank you to everyone on the panel who contributed their time and wanted to help get these questions and answers out. We will be doing more things like this. We will be talking a lot more. There will be blog posts. There are going to be more chats. We might be on Twitch. We might be here. But it's been an absolutely wonderful chat to have you here, to be talking to you guys as well. And we hope that we see you in the future and we get to share more and more about this game. And that you stick with us. Like, a lot of you have been with us for a long time. And we hope that Galacticare is going to be something that you're going to enjoy. And we're going to create wonderful things together going on many years, and fingers crossed. And thank you, everyone, for turning up. It's the end of the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. I don't know how to end the
I
stage.
don't know how to leave.
You don't.
We're
I think you just
trapped.
We never end.
Quick, somebody
think you
rescue
just-
us.
Oh, I found the button. Okay, we're all about to
Okay.
disappear into nothing. Goodbye,
Bye.
everyone.
Saving the galaxy one patient at a time.
Nice.